there are many things not right in the medical marijuana industry. The industrial tree itself has many branches, stemming from regulators to the growers to the people who do the testing, and then the people who buy the products. This documentary is going to tell you everything about the industry that you don't know, but should know, and everything about CBDs, hemp, and THC that you didn't know, but should have been told. First of all, the state that first legalized marijuana was Washington. Immediately, their homicide rates went up. And there's probably a good reason for it, but not what the officials are stating. And there's a difference between hemp growers of just regular hemp and THC-laden hemp. I want to tell you that many of the persons I have met and talked to personally in the THC-laden hemp industry, I want to tell you there are a lot of creeps out there, a lot of snakes, a lot of individuals you wouldn't let babysit your children. Yet they are the backbone of an industry. And what's even more upside down is the name they chose, medical marijuana. What I find most disturbing in my ventures, in my journalistic investigations, is that there's a huge difference between the industry of THC-laden marijuana and CBDs without the THC. First of all, with respect to the THC-laden marijuana called medical, you have to understand that the most medicinal of those strains of marijuana, the most productive, the most beneficial strains, have been eradicated from circulation. What remains are indica hybrids, and they have pretty much got rid of most and all sativa, pure sativa strains. The last sativa strain, the last standing sativa crop, was owned by Bob Marley himself. Funny how that crop burned to the ground one night. And yes, the Farm Bill is making it easier and easier for people to grow hemp, but there's so many regulation and so many industries that stem from hemp, and they can stem from hemp. Yet just 2 years ago, putting hemp on your product label would get you kicked off of Amazon, blacklisted from certain banks, blacklisted from certain credit card processors, and harassed by a number of federal agencies, from the Department of Agriculture to the FDA to the actual FBI itself. And don't forget the DEA. What's most disturbing to me is the loss of the most medicinal of the strains. To call something a product medical or medicinal, and then to get rid of the most beneficial of that product for no reason whatsoever, no apparent reason, is in itself upside down. And the way the industry is set up, the way the distribution is set up, the way the dispensary licenses are handed out, from top to bottom, that tree, especially the THC tree, is riddled with snakes and insects. Not literally, figuratively. And there's so many misconceptions, so much hype, that it's disturbing. And you can't call it a medical anything when your doctor has no idea that you're smoking it or using it, can't monitor it, can't monitor the usage, can't monitor the effectiveness. How medical is that? How medical is it when a licensed nurse can't deliver a gram of flour to a cancer patient without being in violation of federal law. But yet that same nurse is qualified to handle category 1, 2, and 3 narcotics, injectable forms of narcotics. But yet a gram of weed. Yet a caregiver, a nurse's aide, can go get a caregiver license and go and pick up ounces at a time and say it's for their client. How upside down do you want to make an industry? And the real mind blower is the fact that when you make a CBD crop, a hemp crop, and you grow a hemp crop that has no THC in it, it's required to be organic. Every single plant must be organic, cannot use artificial fertilizers or pesticides or insecticides or herbicides. And people wonder why the sativa went bye-bye, and one can only imagine. It wasn't financial. It wasn't monetary. Yes, sativa plants grow tall and thin and don't put out the biomass, but you just charge more money for a better product. People will pay for it. Not associated with some of the side effects that we hear about, the sativa was by far the most medicinal strain brought to us by God or by Mother Nature. And what is perplexing is that when it comes to the THC-laden cannabis, you could put up to 14 different additives in there and sell it to a cancer patient. Are you kidding me? So what is the therapeutic range and nature of CBDs and marijuana? How effective is it really? How well is the industry going to do? Will it become a commodity? And what will the industry do? People are predicting that revenues to quadruple. And it may. But there are many weaknesses in this chain, and there are many broken branches in this tree. And if they don't get fixed, you have an industry that may collapse in on itself for several reasons. And we'll touch upon that. But mainly, people want to know how this stuff works, why it works. And the people who sell it cannot tell you. I was in a lab about a month ago talking to somebody with doctor in front of their name, a PhD chemist. And he told me how CBDs work. He said, they're anti-inflammatory. Then I asked him another question. Well, how is it anti-inflammatory? What is the mechanism of action? And he said, well, it's anti-inflammatory. I asked again, what mechanism makes it anti-inflammatory? Some anti-inflammatories are COX-2 inhibitors. Some of, like ibuprofen, inhibit inflammatory enzymes. So how does CBD become anti-inflammatory? He couldn't tell me, but yet they're going to be selling tons of it to retail. And the indica itself, when you smoke too much of it, produces very bad side effects that you cannot possibly categorize as medicinal. Here is the problem. Those same symptoms that you get from smoking too much indica, you also get from huffing paint or glue. And it's related to the terpenes that are found, because it's not just THC that gives you whatever it is you're feeling. It's the terpenes that bring you down, that slow you down, that interfere with cognition, motivation, that enhance procrastination. And you may think an industry with products called Trainwreck, Sour Diesel, Yellow Poison, white widow. You think those are names of medicinal drugs? I doubt it. And yet, it's all legalized under the name of medical marijuana. The hemp industry has its own set of regulations, its own set of dispensaries, and from top to bottom, you can smell a rat. First of all, at least 25 to 30% of the licenses for dispensaries were never issued, so they kept the competition down. Who got first dibs on dispensaries is up for discussion. How is it in one state like Nevada, you can apply and obey the law and dot every I, cross every T, and still be denied the licensure that they were mandated to provide to people? Yet other people, other entities, get to have 4 and 5 dispensaries. Do you smell a rat yet? And when you huff paint and you have the same exact symptoms as an indica overdose, you've got issues. Now, Rick Simpson, he started a lot of this hype about anti-cancer this, anti-cancer that. People who make CBD water say it'll cure cancer. And I asked them, well, who have you cured? Give me their names. I'll market your product for you. I'll find you buyers. Just all you got to do is give me a name of a person that you cured. Well, I haven't cured anybody with my water yet. But you tell anybody marketing CBDs about cancer, shoot, they want to cure you. And if they can't cure you, nobody can cure you. First of all, in the natural realm, there's no such thing as a cure for cancer. I want to make that clear. You're either in remission or you're not. Many people using natural medicine, their cancers come back when you go off the protocols too soon. So what is it about Rick Simpson oil and CBDs that is anti-cancer? How does it work and how does it fail? And when a PhD level biochemist can't tell me how it's anti-inflammatory, he sure as heck can't tell me how it's anti-cancer. And everybody promoting the anti-cancer aspects of cannabis always refer back to who? Rick Simpson. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the Rick Simpson story. First of all, he had one cancer, and people represent cannabis as curing all cancers. So if you're using Rick Simpson as your reference, you can only reference the cancer that he had to be totally straight and legal and truthful. And here's the other thing. When you're diagnosed and you're told you're going to die, you don't just go and make an oil and just take the oil here and there and then make your cancer go away. Rick Simpson made many changes to his life. He changed his diet. He changed everything. He tried to get better sleep. He really did a comprehensive protocol, and the main thing that he wants to focus in on is the CBDs, which are anti-cancer but will not cure cancer. I'm here to tell you that's the truth, and I'll tell you why. It makes perfect biochemical sense. First of all, the therapeutic aspect of CBDs all lies within two biochemical facts. One, it contains several carboxylated compounds, but carboxylate or carboxylic acid is very weakly bound oxygen to a carbon. That's what a carboxylate is. Many, I'm like 90 to 95% sure that 90 to 95% of the anti-cancer compounds used in natural medicine, I'm telling you right now, if you just look them up in Wikipedia and look at the biochemical structures, they all contain the same carboxylate groups. Oxygen. And so when you hear about oxygen therapies, Actually, CBDs are one of them because they're fat-soluble pro-oxidants. And 90%, 95% of the compounds used in natural medicine to treat cancer are water-soluble pro-oxidants, not fat-soluble pro-oxidants, which are very rare. But you get to still hear about their benefits in cancer. Flaxseed oil, there's one of them right there. Ozone. In fact, people are trying so hard to get fat-soluble pro-oxidants into their bodies, they're taking coconut oil, olive oil, hemp seed oil, and bubbling ozone through it so that they can make a fat-soluble pro-oxidant. Now, the fact that the hemp is a fat-soluble molecule means that it stays in the bloodstream longer. It doesn't clear and flush out your kidneys like water solubles do. The other thing is it makes it more absorbable across lipid protein cell walls, cell membranes. So there is an improvement in the pro-oxidant nature and the anti-cancer nature of CBDs because it's a fat-soluble pro-oxidant. But there's one aspect of this fat-soluble pro-oxidant that really cannot be matched by ozonated coconut oil, although it's very anti-cancer, is that some cancer cells actually have receptor sites for CBDs. That means when you take a CBD, it will stick to that cancer cell or to those cells which have receptor sites, much like a magnet or Velcro. Well, if that receptor site attracts the CBD, and the CBD is carrying with it multiple carboxylated compounds, multiple carboxylated bonding sites, then you got a pretty good delivery system for oxygen into a cancer cell, which generally does not want oxygen in the cell. It's been proven that cancer cell membranes are inflamed because of the acid production. Lactic acid, uric acid, and carbonic acid are the three main acids produced by a cancer cell. Those are harmful to nearby cells and create much of the pain associated with cancer, which is why alkaline therapies have been reported as being extremely effective in eliminating cancer pain within 48 to 72 hours of effective dosing. Oxygen is alkaline. So if you have a pro-oxidant in an acidic environment, it will neutralize the acid, thereby relieving pain and inflammation. Hello? The other thing that oxygen does with respect to cancer inhibits fermentation of glucose into lactic acid. That is how cancers eat and breathe, through fermentation, much like a plant, much like a fungus, much like an anaerobic bacteria. Fermentation of lactic acid, of glucose into lactic acid, is how it gets its energy. Therefore, if you were to get oxygen in the cell, it will inhibit the anaerobic nature of cancer, or anything that's an anaerobe and doesn't use oxygen to create energy. So now you raise the alkalinity of the cancer cell with the oxygen, and you also inhibit the fermentation. That's very helpful. But the problem with CBDs is dosing. If you don't dose it correctly, it will be a waste of time and money. And if you don't support it with other oxygen therapies and mineral therapies, you could be wasting your time as well. Remember, cancer kills. So generally, you're not killing the cancer cell through cytotoxicity, you're killing the cancer cell through starvation. You're starving your cancer cell. And that's why when they give this stuff to people with breast cancer, women with breast cancer that are estrogen sensitive or estrogen reliant, it works so well with the estrogen blockers, because the estrogen blockers block one of the nutrients that cancers need that are hormonal sensitive. So it's like a double starvation. And when you starve a tree, and this is an analogy, it's 5th grade analogy. When you have a tree that produces fruit, you go out and chop it down, it falls down, the fruit lays on the ground, splits open, seeds spill out, and eventually you'll get another tree. Sooner or later, one will pop up through the ground. But if you starve your tree and dehydrate your tree, you never water it, never feed it, it'll start to consume its own fruit to stay alive. Once it consumes all its fruit, it dies. And when it dies, it cannot spill seeds that are viable. The seeds are no longer viable. So then you don't have cancer spreading, but yet if you let it eat, if you let anything eat 1 hour in a 24-hour day, you will fail. You have to maintain a blood level 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that is anti-fermentation. One of the anti-fermentation meds used against cancer is called dichloral acetate. And guess what acetate is? It's nothing but a carboxylate molecule. So that is how the CBDs work. And it doesn't mean it'll work on every cancer, and it doesn't mean it'll work on every person, but it should be part of your protocol. And the THC doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Now THC, what does have the effect, if you're in a lot of pain, of extending the duration of your narcotics. But narcotics encourage fermentation. And therefore, people on high doses of narcotics do not respond to natural therapies. You have to take the overall dose down on the narcotic dosing before anti-fermentation protocols begin to work. Narcotics increase fermentation and downregulate your immune system, which is the opposite of what you need. You need to decrease fermentation and upregulate your immune system. The other thing, and the last thing that oxygen does, is it aids healing. It assists and accelerates healing. So if you have damaged tissues, they will heal quicker. So yes, it's anti-inflammatory. And we just told you why. It neutralizes lactic acid, and it supplies oxygen for tissue repair. You're welcome. Now, the problem with the indica strain is it's associated with psychosis. So what they have done is created an industry where only a very few people get to profit from it. They squeeze out the little guy, like me and you, who might want to run a dispensary. The dispensaries are so poorly regulated that they will sell moldy pot to a cancer patient and not lose sleep over it. Why? Because they'll be smoking indica. And the problem was so bad in California that the state had to take over all inspections, and every gram of marijuana sold in California is inspected by the state itself. Why? Because there's too many rats in the industry. Now, there's just a couple more things that could spell disaster for many hemp companies. One of them is competition. Not competition from other CBD suppliers, but competition from over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. Come on, let's face it. A bottle of ibuprofen that can last you 60 days is $5. And a bottle of CBD tinctures that lasts you a month can be $79, $80. So, monetarily, if the CBDs do not produce the anti-inflammatory effects that you get with ibuprofen or buffered aspirin, then the CBD industry will be in trouble. What about post-traumatic stress? It's a bunch of BS. Because when you get rid of the uplifting, increased cognitive aspects of sativa and you replace it with the terpenated indicas, those cause paranoia. They cause paranoia, especially late at night. You hear a noise, and all of a sudden, for some reason, the noise frightens you more than it normally would. That's a temporary psychosis. And how can paranoia ever help anybody with post-traumatic stress? It's just an excuse to get high. When you smoke THC-laden marijuana, they can use perithrins to control the mite population. Perithrins are the same insecticide you put on your dog to kill ticks and fleas. And that's going to be in your smokable, consumable, THC-laden marijuana. The minute you get rid of the THC, all that stuff becomes illegal. And I see the weaknesses of the industry that could topple and bring down this whole industry, and people with thousands and thousands of jobs are going to be losing those jobs if what transpires is this. Many people are starting to mix CBDs with other compounds. If you find a synergistic compound and can get it patented, that person can make all other CBD applications obsolete and inferior and totally demolish the industry. For example, the copper one that we've done so much work and study on, the most bioavailable form of copper on the planet, one of the most bioavailable noble metals on the planet. When you mix that with a CBD, the copper one becomes much more effective, and consequently the CBD as well. You have all the makings of a super compound. The copper itself can interfere with nerve transmission or inflame nerves and heal inflamed nerves and restore proper metabolism to nerves so that neuropathy can be affected just by the copper. But now you add the pro-oxidant, anti-inflammatory, cell targeting CBD with the copper, and now you extend the life of the copper and you extend the effectiveness of the CBD, which then also is nerve-friendly compound. CBDs, especially the THC ones, affect nerve transmission just like copper can. And I've sat there on the phone and listened to former professional football players praise the combination of copper one, and ionized copper with the CBD in a cream. Never did I ever think a topical cream would get rid of nerve pain, but it can. So if some big, huge, massive CBD supplier ends up cornering the market on the copper one, they can render all other CBD creams obsolete, inferior, and less effective. And if that happens, everybody with a CBD cream will go out of business. So that's a weakness, that a big player can come in, control the CBD topical industry. If they figure out how to make an oral application with the CBD copper without violating any FDA regulations, then their oral CBDs will make all other oral CBDs obsolete. Completely and totally obsolete. And so one big player can come in, find a synergistic noble metal, combine it, and control the entire industry, providing that compound is patented or the process is patented. So until next time, thanks for listening, and I bid you peace.